technically, they did bring the Demon King back, except it's not Demise, it's Ganondorf. And this actually reminds me of a little bit of a headcanon that I have. Doesn't, how familiar are you with the timeline situation for the Legend of Zelda series? Whoa! Food? Oh, sorry. How familiar are you with the Legend of Zelda timeline situation? Because you mentioning the Demon King returning in tears because of Ganon's hair actually reminded me of a headcanon that I have in regards to, well, all of Tears of the Kingdom's and Breath of the Wild's timeline situation. Well, you know how in Ocarina of Time, the Hero of Time caused one mess of a split, where you have the Downfall timeline, the Adult timeline, and the Child timeline, right? Well, Skyward Sword has a situation that is very similar to what... Yeah, Skyward Sword has a situation that's very similar to Ocarina of Time's temporal shenanigans. In Ocarina of Time, you have the Hero of Time being sent forward in time when he drew the Master Sword. In Skyward Sword, you have Link going backwards in time by like a few thousand years at a minimum because of Girahim stealing Zelda and running into the past. My theory is that because of Link using the Triforce to destroy the Imprisoned in the modern timeline, and then Girahim going back in time with Zelda to reawaken the Demon King, that caused another split in time. Where there's been essentially two timelines since the very beginning of the Zelda series at Skyward Sword. And Rauru and Sonia and their iteration of the Kingdom of Hyrule sprouted from the Hylians of the sky in the time where Link went back to kill Demise, to save Zelda. And the Zonai are actually descendants of the Skyloftians, who decided to stay up there. Hence all of the Sky Islands here in Tears. And because Link went back to the future, likely bringing the Master Sword with him, there was no Master Sword at that point to fight off the Demon King when he reincarnated. And my main point of evidence for this being the case is actually because of something that I have sitting in Link's house over by Terrytown. It also ties in with my theory on how Hyrule Warriors, the one before that came out before Age of Calamity, actually ties into the main Zelda timeline itself. Hyrule Warriors exists at the end of the 3 main timelines that sprouted from Ocarina. And because of the temporal shenanigans that go on in that thing, you have people from all 3 of the other timelines. You have the Wind Waker Link. You have Midna from the Child's timeline, not to mention Ocarina of Time Link. And I think you can get Marin from Link's Awakening in Hyrule Warriors, who fights with a giant-ass bell. And because of the temporal shenanigans, all of the timelines just get yeeted back into one mess. And the reason why I think so is because of this right here. The White Sword of the Sky. The level 2 Master Sword. The level 2 Goddess Sword. From all the way in Skyward Sword. You have this sitting here at the exact same time as you have the Master Sword right here. 2 versions of the same weapon, just in different states of its lifespan. This right here you get by helping put the Mother Goddess statue back upright. It's a whole long quest requiring you to give the claws of each of the 3 elemental dragons to their respective... Yeah, basically. You get the White Sword of the Sky by giving the 1 claw of Dinral, 1 of Naydra, and 1 of Farosh to each of their respective mini goddess statue springs. Spring of Power for Dinral, Spring of Wisdom for Naydra, and Courage for Farosh. So that, in my opinion, is evidence that the timelines that were split all the way back when got rammed back together with the rest. Oh, but you get the Goddess Sword from an amiibo, not an in-game quest. The amiibos, I don't think, are actually, well, quote-unquote, canon to the game. That isn't something that Link can natively do. It's just not part of his abilities. So the Goddess Sword, that's something for players who have the amiibo. Who have the little, oh, have an Easter egg. But here, it's an actual part of the base game that you can get naturally and natively without the paywall. And it's level 2, likely because somehow the Goddess Sword was synchronizing, I think, with the light of the Master Sword after the timeline got reunified. But because it doesn't have the full force of the Tempering Flames, it can't get all the way up. Because if you look at the hilt of this compared to the Goddess Sword, the White Sword of the Sky, and if you compare the Sealed Master Sword to the Fully Awakened Master Sword in Skyward Sword itself, 1, the Master Sword gets a bit longer, and 2, the hilt unfurls, which you can see here on the White Sword of the Sky in comparison to the Goddess Sword. The hilt has unfurled. I think the blessing of the Goddess Hylia caused the White Sword of the Sky to awaken, just like the Master Sword did courtesy of Zelda's blessing near the end of Skyward Sword itself, causing the unfurling and lengthening, causing it to wake up. But since it hasn't gone through the tempering, it doesn't get the full-on transformation into this. Does that make sense at all? Doesn't? Yeah. I mean, I've had this headcanon for quite a while now. And my own headcanon is that the games between Skyward Sword up unto, say, Hyrule Warriors, I'd say that would be about 9,000 years span of time. 9, maybe 10,000 years. And the cycle between the rise of the Calamity and its subsequent sealing, for the length of time between the end of Hyrule Warriors to Breath of the Wild, is 10,000 years in between. So I'm thinking that when the timelines got merged, Ganondorf from ancient Hyrule in the branch timeline that Skyward Sword Link accidentally created got fused with a Triforce of Power that had been split from the rest of the Triforce during Ocarina of Time and its events. Because in Ocarina of Time, the Triforce of Courage went to Link, the Triforce of Wisdom went to Zelda, and the Triforce of Power went to Ganon, to the Ganondorf of that time, and caused a whole load of messes from that point forward in the child and adult timelines. And in the Downfall timeline, Ganon had all 3 pieces, but eventually got split. Once more, Courage to Link, Wisdom to Zelda, and Power to Ganon. So when the timelines merged back together, the Tears of the Kingdom Ganondorf that Rauru had sealed deep beneath Hyrule Castle got the Triforce of Power and was able to wake up, unleashing the first Calamity. Then the hero of that time, alongside his princess, managed to seal it, probably at great cost, and they thought, oh goody, it's gone. Then it woke up 10,000 years later. Shit. That was number 2. Then number 3, the 10,000 years ago Calamity Rise, with the ancient Sheikah, they were prepared. They beat him back pretty easily. Then 10,000 years after that, you got the 4th Rise of the Calamity, and the one that resulted in the Hyrule that I'm playing in right now. That's my headcanon on how it all works. I mean, even fits with how things would have gone. You have one Hyrule that was founded by Link and Zelda of Skyward Sword. Then you have another one founded by Rauru and Sonia that you see in the memories of Tears of the Kingdom. I'm not entirely certain how the entire thing would just merge together and how things would synchronize up. That is a lot of pondering and thinking that I don't really have the brain power for at the moment.